So, very good morning to all of you, and I welcome all of you to my lecture sessions on heterocyclic compounds. It is a part of your B Pharma second year curriculum. Here we have in Unit 3 and 4, heterocyclic compounds will be there. So, okay. So, I'll be dealing in detail regarding why heterocyclic compounds are needed for our pharmacy sector, and why, as a student, why should we learn about heterocyclic compounds, and what there is a standard, there is a stepwise protocol is there which we can follow to understand what exactly is heterocyclic compounds. But here my suggestion is heterocyclic compounds has a predecessor. Okay, organic chemistry evolved even before birth of heterocyclic compounds. So that's the reason why both nomenclature and chemistry of heterocyclic compounds can be understood and learned and applied easily if we have the basic knowledge on the remaining sections of organic compounds. Okay, so that's the reason why one need to have some basics on organic compounds to understand in detail heterocyclic compounds. So that's how it will go. Okay, so in this session we will see the basics or introduction to heterocyclic compounds, as well as the nomenclature and classification also. So these things we will discuss today. So here in the syllabus in Unit 3 we have some heterocyclic compounds. Here nomenclature, classification, synthesis, reactions, and medicinal uses of some of the compounds belonging to certain categories like pyrrole, furan, thiophene, and regarding their characteristics like aromaticity is to be discussed. In the unit number 4, again, synthesis, reactions, and medicinal uses of some of the compounds belonging to other heterocyclic groups, which are very, very important for making some of the drugs. Okay, so these are what we are going to see in the coming lectures. So these are the books: Heterocyclic Chemistry by Joule and Mills, Heterocyclic Chemistry and Drug Discovery by G. Jackley, and Fundamentals of Heterocyclic Chemistry by Quinn and Tyrrell. So these are the 3 books that are excellent as far as the information is concerned and the kind of presentation is concerned, which is more relevant to pharmacy students. All these 3 books are available online. One or the other resource we can make use of. So try to see at least one of these books so that it helps you in understanding the subject in a more in-depth knowledge you can gain by going through this literature. I'll also be supplying you some of the material that I have collected and some of my notes also I'll be sharing with you so that you can go through the material. Okay, because this is online, so I can share all my notes in PDF format so that you can make use of them. Okay, so we'll go ahead. So here the fundamental question that we have to ask in the beginning is, what are heterocycles? So here our journey starts with a presumption that we knew something about organic chemistry. Okay, so in the organic chemistry, both at your +2 level or in your B Pharmacy first year, we have seen some of these molecules like alkanes, alkenes, and alkynes. After that, cycloalkanes we have studied. And then we have gone through aromatic compounds like benzene, naphthalene, and polynuclear aromatic compounds. Okay, so we know their characteristics, and also we knew something about their physicochemical properties, chemistry, synthesis, etc. So these are all simple cyclic compounds. So if you see the atoms over here, all are carbons, so we call them as carbocycles. Okay, so these carbocycles can be saturated or unsaturated, like in case of cyclohexene. And if we have alternating double bonds, the molecules will gain special characteristics through aromaticity. Okay, So these are all carbocycles, irrespective of their whether aromatic or not. We call them as carbocycles. Means the framework formed due to carbons only. Okay. Then we can simply extend the thinking a little bit further to understand what are heterocycles. So in the carbocycles, one of the carbon is replaced by an atom other than carbon. Atom other than carbon. So here I am giving you a few examples where if you can replace the carbon with an oxygen, with a nitrogen, like this. We can also replace this atom with other groups like silicon, phosphorus, sulfur, etc. Okay, whichever are more than monovalent. So all of them can form, can be a part of the ring. Okay, so in this way. So the chemistry of carbocycles is organic chemistry. Okay, so if you have a cyclic compound with a heteroatom means other than carbon atom. So these type of rings are what we call them as heterocycles. Okay, heterocycles. So that is the basic concept you need to understand. So these are carbocycles, these are heterocycles. You can see all these heterocycles some in one or the other place in your organic chemistry or in medicinal chemistry or biochemistry. You might have seen some of these skeletons already. Okay, so by that time you might have realized that the heterocyclic compounds are also very important for pharmacy subject. So now let's see the significance of heterocyclic chemistry. Okay, so in the in pharmacy, what is our basic duty? Our basic duty is to understand health and disease. Understand health and disease. So here in understanding health and disease, we probe into biochemistry. Okay, so in the biochemistry, we are going to understand the nature of biochemicals. Biochemicals including vitamins, cofactors, coenzymes, proteins, hormones, biological amines, etc. Okay, so all these chemicals, including their structure, chemistry, biological activity, their synthesis, their metabolism, all these things we had discussed in biochemistry. Okay, so if you understand all the roles of all these chemicals in health and disease, then you can understand the disease component well, so that you can offer a drug molecule. So in case of drug molecules, you can get through food, sometimes you can get it from nature, sometimes you are going to get it synthesized. Okay, so these are the reasons why we need to understand something about all these chemicals. But here we are not having only carbocycles in our biochemistry and food, nutrition, and natural products and synthesis. So we have so many compounds which are coming from heterocyclic origin. So that's the reason why we need to understand something about heterocyclic chemistry and its role in pharmacy. So here I gave you some of the examples or case studies. So here, can you recognize these? Proline, tryptophan, histidine, what are they? These are all amino acids. These are amino acids. Yes, very good. These are all amino acids. So here, if you look at this part, okay, so here we have a ring and we have heteroatoms. And here also, this is a bicyclic unit. We have two rings. One of the ring has a heteroatom. This is indole. So here we have a 5-membered ring saturated with nitrogen. Okay, so in this way, the basic components that are there inside our body, which are actually responsible for presence of protein functionality. So they are all, some of them are heterocycles. So if you understand their nature properly, to understand the biological role of these amino acids, we need to have a clear-cut understanding on the contribution from the heterocycle also. And here, some of the biological amines which are derived from these amino acids, like histamine. What is the role of histamine? Biological role of histamine. Allergic reactions are actually initiated via histamine. So that's the reason why we have a very important and a big chapter in medicinal chemistry, that is antihistaminic compounds. Okay, and this one is a serotonin, or we also call it as 5-hydroxytryptamine. This is one very important neuroamine responsible for happiness, the feeling, happiness feeling that we are getting from our CNS. Okay, so this is melatonin. What is the biological role of melatonin? Biological role of melatonin. Melatonin controls sleep cycle. Okay, melatonin controls sleep cycle. Then we have examples from, similar examples from, so here we have all these vitamins. So in the vitamin section, if you see vitamin B5, so here we have a heterocycle, pyridine is there, or we call it as nicotinic acid. And here this is vitamin B6, where we have again the same kind of pyridyl unit. So this is vitamin B7. You can see such a complicated structure we have. Okay, so here we have one heterocycle fused onto another heterocycle. We have 3 heteroatoms and 2 5-membered rings. Such a complicated structure we have in one of the vitamins which are naturally existing. Okay, so, and then we have quinine, an example from natural products. It is an alkaloid obtained from quinine bark, Cinchona officinalis. And here, especially this particular moiety, so here you'll have nitrogen. This is an anti-malarial
drug.
Yeah, very good. Anti-malarial drug. So here we have one heterocyclic ring again. Okay, so this is pyridine. Here pyridine fused to benzene ring. So this is what we call it as quinoline. Okay, so that is about the natural products. And here we have some of the drugs here, like omeprazole. What is the role of omeprazole?
Proton pump inhibitor.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so antacids, or they are used for gastric ulcer, treatment of gastric ulcer. Okay, now we have here fluvastatin. Statins are lipid lowering drugs, are anti-hyperlipidemic drugs. Okay, so why I am showing you these 3 drugs only means quinine is an anti-malarial agent. Before the discovery of quinine and quinoline anti-malarial agents, malarial parasite used to be one of the most dangerous issue, as far as most deaths are occurring because of malaria. Okay, during First World War and Second World War time, most of the soldiers died because of infections. So one of the reason is malaria. And after the discovery of quinine, the malarial deaths came down drastically. Right now we have a handful of drugs which can fight malaria. It is all because we know something about quinine structure and quinoline chemistry. Through that, we had evolved a series of drugs to fight against malaria. Okay, and here these 2 drugs, synthetic drugs, one is proton pump inhibitor, that is omeprazole, and then anti-hyperlipidemic drug statin, fluvastatin. So these 2 are something like blockbuster drugs. Blockbuster drugs means in the pharmaceutical industry, if a drug can have a gross sales which are crossing $600 million, so this type of drugs are what we call them as blockbuster drugs. And if you see the number of prescriptions that are dispensed daily throughout the world, so these are the 2 drugs which will be there in the top 10 prescribed drugs in the world. Okay, so these are so huge. Okay, a lot of demand is there, and these molecules are doing a lot of service. So here, through this, by knowing about their chemistry, by knowing about their physicochemical properties, we can understand the drug activity, drug synthesis better. So that's the reason why we have to learn something about we have to learn the principles and practice of heterocyclic chemistry, every pharmacy student. Further, why should we study the various parts of heterocyclic chemistry like nomenclature and synthesis, physicochemical properties, etc.? Okay, what are we going to study? We are going to study the nomenclature of heterocyclic compounds, and then structure and property relationship, and chemistry. In the chemistry, we will learn in detail regarding synthesis of a particular heterocyclic ring and its reactions. Okay, so first let us see why we should learn something about nomenclature. Okay, so let's say if you see in general, in your place, maybe you will call sugar by one name, okay, which is a common name. And when you go from your place to some other completely foreign place, they may be calling sugar by some other name. Okay, you will call shakkar, panchadara, or sugar, and so many other names will be there. Okay, so it will confuse the scientific community. So that's the reason why there are very strict rules are there regarding nomenclature of organic compounds, including heterocyclic compounds. Maybe by this time you knew something about the IUPAC nomenclature rules, IUPAC rules. Okay, so these rules I request you to please revise once, the kind of rules that you have learned in naming of benzene or aromatic compound, other aromatic compounds. This is the first one. And then alkanes, alkenes, etc. Alkenes, alkanes, or alcohols, etc. Priority rules, including priority rules like chlorine, bromine, iodine. If these are given to you, then chloro, bromo, iodo compound. Chlorine will be given more priority than bromine than iodine. Okay, and sulfur is given more priority than, sorry, oxygen is given more priority than sulfur. Okay, it is like that. The priority rules, whatever you have learned in the IUPAC rules, in the case of alkanes, alkenes, alkynes, or benzene and other aromatic compounds, you please revise once, so that in the coming lectures, when we are trying to adopt these rules to heterocyclic compounds, it will be really easy for you to implement them. Okay, that is about the nomenclature and its significance. The second one is structure and property relationship. What do you mean by structure and property relationship? Let's say if you have, because I just would like to relate this one to benzene. Regarding benzene, you will study something about the boiling point, log P value or lipophilicity, and then the regarding its lipophilicity and solubility index, etc. And then acidity or alkalinity, etc. If it is there, okay. Benzene is neutral. Benzene has some boiling point. It is liquid and it has some log P value. It has solubility index, and because benzene is neutral, you will not have acidity or alkalinity. So these are all some of the physicochemical properties that we need to learn. Because in most of the cases, in case of pharmacy, we use chemicals as drugs or excipients or solvents, etc. Okay, to understand how they are behaving, or to guess how they are going to behave, we need to get very good grip on the physicochemical properties also. So then, if you change the structure, how it is going to alter the properties, that is what we have to see. Like, let's say when you have benzene, and if you put one OH group on the top of this, and let's say when you have cyclohexane, and then on cyclohexane when you put a hydroxy group, this is neutral. whereas this is acidic. Okay, this is neutral, this is acidic. So how can you explain this? How can you explain this? Okay, so here we will take into consideration the entire structure, electronic structure, etc. And then we will propose a mechanism via which the proton can be abstracted easily so that the phenoxide ion is going to stabilize its chemistry. It is all because of its unique structure. We are going to get some property. Okay, so uniqueness of the benzene ring is giving the property, that is, when you add OH group, instead of, because alcohol groups are neutral, alcohol is a neutral functionality. So whereas in case of phenol, the hydroxy group is going to become acidic. Okay, so the property can be explained only when you have thorough knowledge on the structure. So that is what we are going to see. This is 100% applicative. So applications are what we are going to see here by knowing the basics. That is what I told you. Okay, you have to revise. You have to revise the previous classes. Okay, structure, property, relationships. And then the third one is chemistry. So in the chemistry, we will focus on synthesis as well as its reactions. Okay, so why we need to gain knowledge on synthesis and reactions? So I have kept some of the case studies in the coming slides. So there you will come to know a lot about this. Basically, synthesis. What is the role of synthesis? Let's say just now we have seen a drug, that is fluvastatin. So when a drug has to enter into market, okay, you need to produce drug in bulk. Okay, because the drugs are not available in nature. So you have to synthesize it from starting materials. So in this, you need to know the principles of synthesis and how to execute it, what is the standard protocol, etc. Okay, so that is what we are going to do here. That is the way how synthesis is going to be useful to you. The second thing is the reactions. Okay, so let's say when we have one of the drug, parallelly people will develop secondary drug. So we have first line drugs, and after some day somebody will release second line drug, and again third line drug. It is like that. If you see penicillins, penicillin G is the first generation natural antibiotic. Then we got ampicillin, amoxicillin, etc. And then we have methicillin. Okay, so it is like this. So we take some heterocyclic compound and we will prepare derivatives of that so that we will achieve certain biological activity, target biological activity. So to do all this chemistry, semi-synthesis, etc., we need to know how a heterocyclic compound responds to a particular reaction. For example, benzene undergoes Friedel-Crafts, okay, alkylation reaction. Friedel-Crafts alkylation reaction. So let's say if you keep a nitrogen to benzene, okay, it is becoming a pyridine. So will it undergo FC reaction or not? Even if it undergoes, what type of reactivity will be there? Because in case of benzene, all carbons, all 6 atoms are carbons here in the framework. But here we have 5 carbons and 1 nitrogen. So obviously it will have different type of electronic structure. So through learning something about structure and property relationships and applying all this knowledge, we will understand how a heterocyclic compound is going to respond to a chemical reaction. So that is very much needed for drug development, for synthesis of alternating molecules, for discovery of alternating synthetic protocols, etc. Okay, so we will see all of them during our discussions on individual heterocyclic compounds. But these are fundamentals that you need to understand, and this is the viewpoint through which we are going to handle heterocyclic chemistry. So are you able to understand what I am saying? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Very good, very good. So here the objectives of our study are whatever I have declared so far, okay, learning nomenclature and then learning about structure property relationships and chemistry. So here I'm going to give you some of the case studies to understand why we are learning heterocyclic chemistry. So on the screen, you can see two drug molecules. What are they? Aspirin and ibuprofen. Do you know what is aspirin?
Yes, sir. Salicylate, sir. Analgesic.
Yeah, acetyl salicylate. It is actually discovered as a painkiller.
Analgesic.
Yeah, analgesic. But later on, people realized that aspirin is not very good in not only reducing pain killing activity, but it is giving gastrointestinal problems, including ulcer.
Ulcer.
Yeah, ulcer. So if you are on ULCER, okay, if you are on aspirin for about 1 week, okay, 500 milligram thrice a day, by 5th or 6th day, you will have ulcerations in your stomach. So that's a severe problem. So that's the reason why aspirin was actually replaced by ibuprofen. This is another very important and potent drug molecule that is there in the market. Okay, so these two share the same side effect, that is ulcer. So that's the reason why scientists have evolved newer molecules like celecoxib. So these are what we call them as COX-2 enzyme inhibitors. So this is one of the first generation COX-2 inhibitors. So it became a success in the market in the beginning and making billions of dollars. So that's the reason why other companies wanted to synthesize similar compounds. So here we have an aromatic compound connected to another heterocyclic compound. So here we have acidic group. This is non-polar, and here we have a connector. Okay, it is like a connector. So scientists have to do some kind of a modification. So they studied this. What is this unit? This is pyrazole. This is pyrazole. So they studied the structure and property of pyrazole, and they experimented with other molecules to ultimately obtain rofecoxib. Okay. So here you can see that we have another heterocyclic unit here, that is a dihydrofuran. It is actually a lactone. This is actually a lactone. And on the other side, we have, this is a methane sulfonate and simple benzene ring on this side. Because this is 5-membered ring, this is also a 5-membered ring, and both are having same kind of molecular volume, which is actually structure property relationships, and the remaining units are placed appropriately in comparison with celecoxib. So that's the reason why rofecoxib also became a drug. Vioxx is a classical example for some other reason, not only for COX-2 inhibition. And later on, somebody else did research works and then discovered something else. Okay, so here again you can see this is a 5-membered heterocyclic, this is also 5-membered, this is also 5-membered heterocyclic ring, and we have 2 heteroatoms here. This is isoxazole. Okay, so this is the reason why we need to know in detail regarding the structure property relationships and also synthesis. Okay, so if you show this structure and if somebody asks you how can you replace this ring, you can easily say like we can replace with the tetrahydrofuran. So once you design that molecule, you should actually be able to synthesize it. How can you synthesize that? You can synthesize that only when you know the protocols that we have to follow in achieving a particular heterocyclic ring. So that is the reason why we need to have a good grip on synthesis of different heterocyclic rings. Okay, I hope you are convinced now regarding learning the skill of, or we usually say it is not actually a skill set, it is actually art. Synthesis is like an art. So we need to know the art of synthesizing heterocyclic units. Then I'll give you another example. So this is a cimetidine or a tegamet is a common is the commercial name. Cimetidine. Have you ever heard of this word, cimetidine? Again, this is again a blockbuster drug. It is also used as an anti-ulcer drug. Okay, so this was discovered way back in 1975, 1980 at that time, and it became a blockbuster drug. Means so much of revenue generated, so many prescriptions are made. So then scientists started looking at alterations of cimetidine. Okay, then can you see any comparisons to both these? Okay, so here you have a different type of heterocycle. This is actually a guanylyl unit. This is actually a uridyl unit. And here we have furan. Here we have an imidazole. Okay. And then ranitidine was there, and then somebody has done research work and then evolved famotidine, which is actually Jantac actually is a very popular drug that is prescribed in the market right now. Famotidine or Pepcid is also again another competitor. Now, can you see any comparison with all these structures? There are minor changes are there. So why they are doing minor changes? To obtain a patent, one. Second one is to obtain a novel compound. Third one, to reduce side effects. Fourth one, to increase potency or efficacy. Okay, so that is the reason why it is imperative that in the pharmaceutical industry, in the R&D, so one need to know very good knowledge. One need to possess very good knowledge on synthesis of heterocyclic rings. Okay, so all these are minting millions, and they are serving mankind like anything. Okay. The next one is maybe in your medicinal chemistry, you will see. Maybe if you are also, if you have already entered into pharmacology, so there also you will see one term, we call it as mechanism of action. Mechanism of action. So in studying mechanism of action, like in case of omeprazole, I'm not going to give you the entire details. I hope some of you have seen reactions like this, maybe in your reactions of functional groups. So this is actually the entire process of how omeprazole is acting as an enzyme inhibitor. Okay. So here, what exactly is happening is so much of reactions are happening. So this is all studied by the scientists. So here, what exactly is happening? The nucleophilicity of nitrogen is actually initiating a chemical reaction. So that is actually the precursor for alkylation, irreversible inhibition of this particular protein. So what is needed? The protein, the pyrrole ring over here need to have highly nucleophilic nitrogen. Highly nucleophilic nitrogen means more electron density is needed. So what type of functional groups are needed? Electron donating or electron withdrawing? So what is the nature of methyl methoxy? Electron donating or electron withdrawing?
Electron donating.
Electron donating, sir.
Excellent. Okay. So when they are showing positive inductive effect like this, okay, so they are pumping in so many electrons. Then what will happen? This nitrogen will become more reactive so that it can readily react with this enzyme. So it will readily create that intermediate so that the enzyme is inhibited. Now, what kind of substitutions are needed here? You can alter. You can put methyls, amine, OCH3, OH group, so many other things. So if you wanted to prepare different types of pyridyl units, you need to know a lot about the way how pyridyl unit behaves in a particular reaction. or how to achieve different types of pyridine units. So through that knowledge, now you can see different types of drugs that are available in the market, like omeprazole. Now we have lansoprazole, then pantoprazole, and rabiprazole. So you can see that in all these we have benzotriazole units are there, but you can clearly observe that the pyridine unit is substituted by powerful electron donating groups. Okay, so all these are electron donating groups. So by simply changing the structure of over here, so one can synthesize a new drug which is patentable, a new drug with more safety profile, very good pharmacokinetic, means potency, and patient compliance will be there. So that is our objective. So that's the reason why in pharmacy, in the drug discovery section, in medicinal chemistry section of pharmaceutical industry, one need to have very strong knowledge on the heterocyclic chemistry. It is not only like that. Let's say in pharmaceutics, all the drugs are not available in the market as powder or in pouches. Okay, they are available as tablets, capsules, syrups, etc. So when a drug is in formulation, okay, when a drug is in formulation, so you have drug plus excipients will be there. Drug plus excipients will be there. Excipients can be starch or colors, flavors, binders, etc. So if we know the chemistry of the drug, then we will come to know with what type of chemical it is compatible. With what type of chemical it is compatible. If it is not compatible with a flower, because flowers will have some chemistry. So let's say if you wanted to add citral, it will have aldehyde group. If you wanted to add menthol, menthol will have alcohol group. It like this. If the drug is not compatible with particular flower, then you will come to know that a different type of flower is to be used, or we avoid that formulation completely. So all these are going to be studied in pharmaceutics. So it is like that. It is not only limited to synthetic organic chemistry or medicinal chemistry, but knowledge on heterocyclic units is also going to be useful to you in understanding pharmaceutics, pharmaceutical analysis, pharmacology concepts. Okay, so that's the reason why you need to have basics or fundamentals very strong. So friends, with this I concluded the introductory component. Now we are going to enter into the second part. Is it clear to all of you the importance of heterocyclic chemistry in pharmacy? Are you convinced now that heterocyclic chemistry is important for us?
Yes, sir.
Very good, very good. So we'll go to classification. So why do we have to classify? That is the first question. We always learn the truth via questions. Okay, why classification is actually needed for us? For better understanding. Okay, so maybe at least 50% of you are from BiPC. Okay, and some of the others are from MPC. Some maybe by MBiPC. Okay, in BiPC you might have seen how actually the living beings are classified. We have genera, we have species, so on and so forth. Why they were classified into different subsections? To understand a particular species in detail. Okay, because when we have crores and crores of living beings are there on earth, okay, we cannot study all of them in one lifetime. So that's the reason why if we classify them appropriately, one section of human beings or scientists will focus on one type of species so that we can understand the species well. Okay, so that's the reason why classification is very much needed in case of infinite number of very high number of members are there in any particular group. It is always suggested to classify them. Like in case of organic chemistry, we classified organic compounds by their nature: alkanes, alkenes, alkynes, etc. Okay. So in heterocyclic compounds also, because after their synthesis, successful synthesis way back in 1900s, scientists have synthesized millions and millions. Right now, around 2.5 crore unique heterocyclic compounds are there in the literature. So when we have that huge volume of material is there, then it is imperative that we have to classify them to understand their nature. So in the classification, there are methods to follow. So one of them is type and number of heteroatoms. Second method is regarding size of ring. Third method is number of rings. Okay, so these are the three ways how we can classify a group of heterocyclic compounds. Okay, we do have other classifications like synthetic, natural, biologically active, biologically inactive, compounds in drugs, compounds in pesticides, compounds in color industry. Like this, we can have different types of classifications can be there. But for organic chemistry, this is the classification which suits us. Okay, I don't say this is the only classification available for heterocyclic compounds. Okay, so this suits our organic chemistry study. So here, the classification, so type and number of heteroatoms means, type means when we have oxygen, we can have nitrogen, we can have sulfur, or we can have silicon, we can have phosphorus. So like this, we can classify heterocyclics as heterocyclics containing oxygen, heterocyclics containing nitrogen, heterocyclics containing sulfur, heterocyclics containing silicon, etc. And a number of heteroatoms: heterocycles containing 2 nitrogens, heterocycles containing different type 2 heteroatoms, etc. Okay, these are all only for your basic understanding. Okay, nobody is using these classifications right now. These became irrelevant. Okay, but for our basic understanding, we need to see the way how we can classify heterocyclic compounds. And in case of size of ring and saturation, in case of size of ring, we can have 3-membered ring, 4th member, 5-membered, 6-membered, 7-membered, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is one way we can classify, and we can classify depending on their aromaticity. Like this is pyridine. Here one of the double bond is removed, means dihydropyridine. This is tetrahydropyridine. This is hexahydropyridine or piperidine. Okay, so this is the way. This is also another way of classifying heterocyclic compounds. So in our study, don't worry about how to remember all these structures. Okay, so we are going to see in detail regarding every one of these molecules. So by the end of our heterocyclic chapter, you will know all these structures at your fingertips. Don't worry. Okay. And number of rings, as you have seen earlier also, we can have 1-membered, 2-membered rings, 3-membered, and polycyclic. Okay, in case of, if you have a 1-membered, heteroatom containing 1 ring, it is pyridine. This is phenolene. This is acridine. This is a benzoacridine. Okay, so the number is increasing. So beyond 3, we call them as polycyclic, polynuclear aromatic compound. So here this is polycyclic heterocyclic compound. Polynuclear heterocyclic compound. So friends, this is the way how basically we can have classification of heterocyclic compounds. Okay, please don't give too much of detailing here, because all these classifications are preliminary. Now people are using classifications which are hybrid of all these three. 7-membered ring containing 2 nitrogens, fused onto benzene ring. Okay, so that classification, it is like that. Okay, so the things have changed because there are so many heterocyclic compounds are there with completely heterogeneous structures. So classifying the molecules is really tough. So this is one of the way which is proposed for classification of heterocyclic compounds. Okay. Now we are entering into another important concept, that is nomenclature. Okay, nomenclature. So just now we have seen the reason why we need to learn something about nomenclature. So let's say when everybody on earth, all human beings, if they were not named, then what will happen? How can you call your friend? Let's say they don't have name. Then how can you call them? You will call them by description. When we have hundreds of people are there, now we have more than 130 crore population is there in India itself. Now you can find 6 feet white male with so and so complexion, that type of compounds you can find at least 1,000 people will come. Now how can you differentiate one from the other? Okay, names are given to give unique identity. So when you don't know anything about your name, you will be called by your registration number. Let's say in your classroom, your teacher does not know your name. Okay, because he cannot remember. So how he can pick somebody exclusively? By calling them by their registration number. Because every one of you, whoever is graduating from Andhra University, will have a unique identity. That is registration number. No other student will have, in whatever the generation may be, no other student will have the same registration number. So to give unique identity, nomenclature will be used. Okay, so here as I told you, we use the same kind of principles as we had used in case of organic chemistry. One is giving common name or calling them by common name or trivial name. Common name or trivial name. The second one is replacement nomenclature. The third one is Hansch-Widman nomenclature or IUPAC rules. Okay, so these are the three nomenclature methods that are agreed by IUPAC. I'll give you a few examples. A common name. In case of common name, because heterocyclic compounds, heterocyclic chemistry is born, okay, at early 1990s. Okay, so we had all kinds of detailing regarding heterocyclic compounds in the beginning of 1900s, but pyridine, etc. were there even before that. So by that time people are calling chemicals by their name. Let's say glucose was there even before the discovery of heterocyclic chemistry. Glucose has a structure, we call it as pyran. Okay, so glucose structure is like this. So this is a heterocyclic ring. So we need not call this by pyran, hexahydropyran or something like that. Okay, so that will confuse people because glucose is there for hundreds of years. So in the same way, in the beginning of organic chemistry, some of the chemicals which are very popular were called by their name, like ethylene oxide, mucic acid, pyridine, nicotinic acid, coumarin. So these are some of the popular, well-used organic compounds that were discovered even before the entry of establishment of heterocyclic chemistry. So that's the reason why everybody throughout the world, they knew this name. Okay, so like we have our popular heroes, maybe Nani in Telugu or Chiranjeevi or other actors. We call them by common name, or heroines Anushka or something like that. Okay, so their name, original name, nobody knows and nobody bothered even to know about their name. The reason, the names are very popular. Everybody knew the name. So there is no chance of somebody mistaking the name for some other compound. Okay, if you call pyridine throughout the world, whether you go to Asia, whether you go to Australia, European, American region, any region, African region, it doesn't matter. Okay, so pyridine remains pyridine. Everybody understands it by its name. So you need not call it by IUPAC name is not needed. It's not needed. Okay, IUPAC agrees that pyridine can be used as a standard name. Okay, it is to reduce confusion. Okay, so much of verbatim will be there, so many words will be there. So to remember all the names, it's really difficult. So it is better we use common name in some cases. So I'll give you one more example. If you look at this structure, this is really complicated. We have one heterocyclic over here and another heterocyclic over here. It is like a bridged compound. If you wanted to give it technical name, so this is the technical name. 3R, 3AR, 6S, 6AR, 11BS, 2-methyl, 1, 2, 3, 3A, 6, 6A hexahydro, 311, methano, benzofuro, 32D, isoindole, 6,8 diol. Can you remember this name? This is actually one of the alkaloids isolated by famous scientist Sir Turner in the early 1800s. In the early 1800s. You can imagine at that time there is no heterocyclic chemistry, nothing is there. So we call this by a simple name, that is morphine. Okay. So morphine is a standard name right now. Everybody will accept this. Even IUPAC also will accept this. So this is the reason why common names are one of the way of giving nomenclature to some of the names, some of the compounds which are popular. Around 50 different compounds are there which are very popular, like tetrahydrofuran, furan, pyrrole, pyridine, etc. Second one is replacement nomenclature. Replacement nomenclature is very simple, very simple. You know these skeletons, okay? This is benzene, this is naphthalene, this is anthracene. So what are these? These are all heterocyclic compounds, okay? So this is benzene. This is when nitrogen is there, we use azo. Sulfur is there, is for nitrogen. Sulfur, thia. Oxygen, oxa. Okay. So because nitrogen is there, this we can call it as azabenzene. So this is naphthalene. Now can you tell me what type of name we can give to this? The common name is quinoline. What is the name we can give through replacement nomenclature? Azanaphthalene. One azanaphthalene. Okay, so this one anthracene. If you give name numbering 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so how to give numbering, that I'll give you. So you have to note down the position as well as add the word aza and then give this name. That should be sufficient. Okay, so this is the way how we can give names to the heterocyclic compounds by using replacement nomenclature. Replacement nomenclature is used is not very popular. You can hardly find any because it is totally dominated by common names. Okay. And then the third one is Hans-Widman nomenclature. So here this is the most popular and the standard nomenclature that we have. So regarding this, we will see in detail in the next class. Okay. So in this, so friends, I hope you understood what is discussed today. So what we have seen is what we had discussed in the last class in detail. Okay, right now we had discussed in detail. Before taking up this heterocyclic chemistry, first we need to realize that heterocyclic compounds are very important for us. First, it is not just for marks or just because the subject is there, because it will be there throughout your career. Throughout your career, heterocyclic chemistry or organic chemistry knowledge is must. Third one, heterocyclic chemistry or organic chemistry is not tough. Okay, we need to get grip on the basics, and then we need to learn the tricks of applying the basics to understand the compounds. Okay, so in our journey, because I'm going to take classes from for all of you, so I'll teach you how to learn the basics and apply it for heterocyclic compounds. It's really easy, but my suggestion for all of you is please go through organic chemistry and learn something about nomenclature first. Refresh your knowledge on functional group chemistry and aromaticity, etc. Once you please go back and then refresh your knowledge. Okay.